Coming up on this week's episode of TechSNAP, Microsoft takes 4 years to fix a nasty bug, bypassing two-factor authentication in the popular Authy app, hijacking a domain with Photoshop, hardware versus software raid revisited, a great batch of your questions, our answers, and much, much more on this week's episode of TechSNAP. Hi, everyone, and welcome to TechSNAP. This is episode 206 of Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly Systems Network and Administration podcast. We stream this episode live on March 19th, 2015. This episode's brought to you by our three fine sponsors, DigitalOcean, Ting, and IX Systems. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. Our live stream, well, that's powered by the incredible Scale Engine over at scaleengine.com. You should go check that out. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is the well-traveled Canadian, our host, the admin, the tech, and the teacher, Mr. Alan Jude. Hey there, Alan.
Hey, Chris, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back, Alan. It was actually good. I heard from you yesterday on Linux Unplugged, and I hear we'll get a little AsiaBSDCon update later on in the show today, so I'm looking forward to that. And so we're both a little sleepy today, but I feel like the show is so big. Like the news really is like right in our sweet spot this week. So regardless of the sleepiness, we're going to be able to plow through this with no problem. And I love it. I love it when we start with a Microsoft story. Just the old IT guy in me, something about it just sort of just loves these. So that's where we're going to start this week in our news is Microsoft took 4 years to get around to fixing something. Right, Alan?
Yeah.
Okay, what happened?
It's funny. Basically, it got reported again in a different way, and they were like, oh, right. So the way SSL and TLS certificates work, it works pretty well, but there are sometimes little problems with it. The biggest one is that, in order to get a TLS certificate, you have to prove that you own the domain that you're attempting to get a certificate for, right? So when you go to one of the places that sells SSL certificates and you say, I want a certificate for jupiterbroadcasting.com, they're like, okay, well, first we need you to prove that you actually own jupiterbroadcasting.com,
right? So
that we don't just give out certificates to anybody.
Yeah.
Well, the usual way this is done is by sending an email to either the address that's listed in the whois, but since most people use domain privacy now and stuff, that one's usually not very useful. Or one of a small set of what are known as the administrative email addresses. Right? Sure. According to the RFC, these addresses are only ever supposed to go to the administrator of the domain. Right? There's postmaster, hostmaster, which is for the person that runs the DNS, administrator, and abuse. Now, a lot of times these email addresses don't get checked very often because they're just full of spam.
Yeah.
Because they're addresses that have to exist on every domain. But the idea is that if you can read the email of one of those domains, you're definitely allowed to be running the SSL for that domain. So the problem came when a webmail service like Hotmail or somebody else would allow those usernames to be registered and used by someone that isn't the administrator. So that's exactly what happened with Microsoft's live.com service. So live.com was fine, but when they launched live.be for Belgium and live.fi for Finland, they forgot to put in those protections.
Oops. How do you forget to do something like that, Alan? How do you possibly... Seems like that's your job.
Yeah. Basically, you reserve the username on the one domain and then you add more domains and kind of forget or something. I'm not entirely sure.
Man, that's a mistake.
Yes. And so a Finnish man reported to Microsoft a couple of weeks ago that he was able to actually go out and buy a valid HTTPS certificate for live.fi for $10 because he had the address hostmaster@live.fi. And, so you inform Microsoft about it, and 4 to 6 weeks later, they finally had solved the problem. And so I have a link to an Ars Technica article where, they talk about that and how they suspended the domain or the username and made him change his email address and so on. But, now nobody can do that to live.fi. But when this story came out, it reminded someone of a story they had thought of before. And it turns out there was a guy from Belgium who basically found the same thing with live.be 4 years ago and has an email thread where he emailed Microsoft about it and got an acknowledgement that, yes, that's not supposed to work.
Uh-oh.
But it's been 4 years and it wasn't fixed yet. It's actually unclear whether it was fixed at the same time as the .fi, or if they noticed it later, or if it's still actually unfixed at this point. But for at least 4 years, this guy could have been doing man-in-the-middle attacks on anybody using live.be at, a cafe or something. And, what's one of the most popular things to do while sitting in a cafe? Check your email on the Wi-Fi.
Sure, of course. And all of your social accounts, too, now.
Yep. Well, and the best part is, if I can do a man-in-the-middle on your logging into your live.be account, and that's the email account you registered your Twitter with, I can then, once I've got your password, I can go in there, change it, or just not know your password and know that you're not going to change it anytime soon.
Right.
Go in there and
what I've wondered
your
about
Twitter
though
password.
Is if you have the ability to intercept the SSL traffic and could do a man-in-the-middle attack, then we always go to the coffee shop reference. You're at the coffee shop and somebody's gonna sit there with their laptop and sniff the traffic. But don't all of us have smartphones that auto log in and update all of our feeds and calendars and email accounts and docs and Twitter and all this in the background constantly? So as soon as your phone connects to a Wi-Fi, even if you don't take it out of your pocket, it starts transmitting these credentials over the air, even if you don't launch a single app. The operating system's doing it at the sync level.
Yeah, your Gmail is going to go in. Now, I think the Gmail actually uses a token or something, isn't actually logging in. But if you have like IMAP mail set up on your phone, like I do, if it sees a trusted certificate, it's just going to let it happen.
Challenging. Makes me want to just not put anything like that on a device, or just leave my Wi-Fi off unless I really trust the network or something like that. But then again, I think about it and I try to balance the trade-off and inconvenience that brings.
Yeah, so they have a nice quote here. After the Finnish man used his address to obtain a TLS certificate for the live.fi domain, Microsoft warned users it could be used in man-in-the-middle and phishing attacks. To foreclose any chance of abuse, Microsoft advised users to install an update that will prevent Internet Explorer from trusting the unauthorized credential. By leaving similar addresses insecure, similar risks may have existed for years. Right, so just because this Finnish guy found it with Hostmaster @ someone else could have been doing it with Postmaster @ forever.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would imagine there's probably entire divisions in governments that sit there and figure out all these things that people don't know about, and then take advantage of them for years.
Yeah,
especially
with the less popular than Hotmail type webmail things.
Yeah,
there's lots of like tiny ones out there where you could probably do the same thing.
Yeah, sure. Huh. Well, I guess they got it fixed now.
On the BE anyway, or on FI anyway. I don't know if it's actually fixed on live.be. It'd be interesting to find out if live.ca has the same problem as well.
Yeah, now you wonder, don't you? Now you start to wonder.
I haven't had a Hotmail address since 1999. But yeah.
All right, very good. Any other thoughts on that story?
No, that's about it for that one.
Okay. Well, I found that to be rather entertaining, Alan, so thanks.
Well, it's kind of important for anybody that runs their own email domain. Make sure you don't give addresses like that out.
Have you...
and make sure all 4 of those, look at the RFC, get the list of administrative accounts, and make sure those always forward to you. Especially if you're doing it for a small business or something.
Did you take any precautions when you were traveling just this last week? Like, did you do anything Wi-Fi-wise or anything like that, or...? Not
especially. I was using my hotel's Wi-Fi and the venue Wi-Fi, but actually mostly what I had was at the airport, I rented this little MiFi device or whatever.
So you had
it has a SIM card in it, and I associated with the Wi-Fi access point that was in my pocket.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good way to go, because then you're not paying a bunch of data.
I switched to using, I used the hotel's Wi-Fi when it's at the hotel.
Sure.
Because it was a bit faster, because it was Wi-Fi to a wired line instead of over 3G and 4G.
Yeah,
and
it's a little more reliable.
Because I was charging the other thing, so I had it turned off. And also it had a limit. It's like if you did more than a gigabyte in 3 days, it would rate limit you. So I was careful to let my phone overnight on the hotel Wi-Fi, and then I would use the Wi-Fi at the university when I was there because it was faster as well.
And as far as
you and save the battery, so that I would have some battery left on the MiFi device when I went out for dinner and so on.
I think one of the things you can do, really, to have a secure mobile device if you're going to be connecting to Wi-Fi, kind of like that, is have one that's current. Like, you have a Nexus device, so you've got the latest Android builds and the latest patches.
Right. Although if you're really concerned, your best bet is to set up a VPN client and route all your traffic on your phone.
Yeah.
Sure, it's going over the Wi-Fi, but it's going encrypted back to your house.
Right.
Although that would have killed performance in Japan, going all the way back to my house. But if you're traveling around town or around the US, going back to your house and then proxying up from there is not really a big deal.
Actually, our sponsor, Ting, it's a couple of weeks back now, but had a blog post about a couple of different really elegant VPN apps that sort of integrate at the OS level and can forward all traffic or just certain app traffic through the VPN on Android. And so Ting has a blog post about that. In fact, why not take a moment and mention Ting? Go to techsnap.ting.com right now and you get the TechSNAP discount. That's a $25 discount off your first Ting device, or if you have a Ting-compatible device. And now that they support the CDMA network and GSM network frequencies, there's a lot more devices you can bring over. So check out their blog about that. When you bring over a Ting device, you'll get $25 of service credit. That service credit for me lasted me more than my first month. So my first month switching over was free. So that's an immediate savings. Ting also has an early termination relief program. What's that about? It's an ETF, essentially. You know what those are, right? The ETFs, that's how they get you, like the bigger cell companies that just want to lock you into these contracts because they're, the duopoly. I don't need to go into it. But they get you with these contracts. They get you with these fees, and they just keep going up. Like, I've heard as high as $375 US to cancel a cellular contract. It doesn't even seem like that should be legal. Now, the good news is not all of them are so high, but there's even better news. You can switch to Ting and start saving money right away. And if you take advantage of their ETF program, Ting's going to help you out. They'll pay a percentage of the cancellation. That's really cool, isn't it? And then you can get started with a no-contract service, only paying for what you use. And Ting only will charge just a flat $6 for the line. Flat $6. That is very straightforward. So you want to add another phone? It's $6. That's all it is. So if you have somebody in the family, or you're a small business, or a medium-sized business, or even a large business, and it's still extremely economical. I love it. That's why I have 3 lines right now, paying flat $6. And then it's just my messages and my megabytes and my minutes usage on top of that. And Ting has a great dashboard to manage all of it so I can stay on top of it. And they have no-hold customer service. You can call them at 1-855-TING-FTW anytime between 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. That's Alan's East Coast time over there. And check out some of their devices on the Ting device page. Like the GSM SIM card is now available, and it's at different cuts. You just pop out the one you need. $9 to get the Ting GSM SIM. Put that in something. Maybe an old phone or a gadget you have laying around, and just get cell service to it and just pay for what you use. It's really straightforward. Also, I just want to mention, I don't know if I've pulled this out on the TechSNAP show. They added the Sharp Aquos Crystal, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous Android phone. $278 when you get the TechSNAP discount. No contract, no early termination fee. It's unlocked. It's yours. You own that phone. That's really cool. And then you just pay for what you use. So go to techsnap.ting.com to get started. And if you're an iOS user, check out Ting's blog post made 2 days ago, about how to make calls over Wi-Fi using the Hangouts app for free anywhere in the U.S. It's a pretty good, so they have a step-by-step guide on how to get that set up. Including a video about it, about the Hangouts app. And then that is a way you can have Ting service and make 100% free calls. Of course, actually, you could do it on any cell service. That's what's so cool about Ting, right? They're going to put that info out there regardless. You could apply it to any carrier. But this is one way that Ting just likes to help out their users. Go to techsnap.ting.com to support the TechSNAP show, and a big thanks to Ting for sponsoring TechSNAP. Okay, Alan. So I, of course, was actually considering trying out this Authy app for a little while. So lo and behold, right here in the news, Alan has an Authy story that is probably going to make me reconsider. Are you going to make me reconsider, Alan?
Probably.
Okay. So what is Authy and what's going on?
So Authy, like you said, is kind of a little third-party, an API that third-party sites can use to add two-factor authentication, right? The idea is make it easy so everybody can just add two-factor auth to their site. And so the way it works is you basically do a post to their API saying, hey, send a verification code to this phone number.
Sure.
And then the user types in the code and you send it to the API and be like, hey, is this the right code?
Hi.
And it says yes or no.
Yeah.
And it has an API where the user, or a UI where the user types in the number. So, they tried to make it really easy, and maybe they made it a little too easy. So when the users ask for a verification code that is sent to their phone, right? So you get the pop-up, and it's like, type in the code we just sent to your phone. and you get a text, and you can type in the number. And if you do, it calls the API with the number you just typed in, and if it's right, it says, hey, success equals true. And, the site accepts that as you just you just did the second factor correctly. However, if you just type ... /SMS into the box instead of the number, it'll let you in.
Shut up. No way.
Yeah. The problem is that the third-party site sends the request after you type in the number. It's just looking for the key success and if it's set to true. It's not actually checking for anything else.
Gotcha.
And that's the problem.
Gotcha.
Because the input that the user types in, supposed to be, the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever, is interpreted in the URL, right? It's kind of concatenated into the middle of the URL. The number you enter is fed into the URL. So instead of, api.authie.com/protected/json/verify/ the number you typed in / the ID of the request, what actually happens is it's, api.authie.com/protected/json/verify/ ... /SMS/ the auth ID. So when the server actually interprets all that in the end, it ends up not calling the verify API, but the SMS API. So that API call just asks Authy to send you a code again.
Jeez.
So basically, you go to the site, it sends you a code by calling the SMS API, and then you're supposed to type in the answer. And for the answer, instead of a number, if you type in ... /SMS, it sends a second code to your phone. But when it sends the code, the response from the API is success equals true. So the app on the other end, on the site you're trying to log into, says, oh, you just typed in the right code.
So it's like Rox is saying in the chat room, they named it correctly after all. It authenticates you after all. It'll authenticate you. It's definitely Authy.
Yeah. Lots and lots of Authy.
Way too much Authy.
It seems like a kind of weak design, right? There's no kind of token or anything that's going on that you're actually verifying or anything. It was just looking for success equals true. Now they're like, oh, well, there's another token. In the correct response to the verify command, it has success equals true, and then token, and then the value is a string is space valid. But people aren't checking that, right? Because the implementation instructions aren't very specific about that. And it just seems like success equals true shouldn't really be the key that you're using, because every API call returns success equals true unless something went wrong. And so it's not really what you should be keying off of. And also, their middleware probably shouldn't unescape the URL. So when you type in ... /SMS, it actually shows up to the server as %2f SMS, right? Because the slash gets encoded so that it won't be interpreted as part of the path.
Yeah.
But somewhere in the middleware in the Authy API, it gets converted back into the actual slash and loses the escaping, and actually gets interpreted, causing the directory traversal, right? The ... deleting the verify section out of the URL. And so the Authy middleware shouldn't do that. The clients that implement it should be keying up something else, and the API probably should have a better way than actually doing a string comparison, right? They should have some token or something that you're actually verifying.
Yeah.
So yeah, the API is not great, and the implementation is done poorly. Because a lot of people just did the implementation themselves, right? It's not like there was a standard library they were using, and so they just look for the success equals true, and it works. It just never doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, no wonder why it's been such a success.
Yeah.
Well,
but yeah,
I don't know. The problem is, the issue is that there is no really good industry-wide two-factor. And one of the things Authy will let you do, if my understanding is, I've never used it, but my understanding is it'll let you combine multiple different multi-factor authentication systems like Google's and Microsoft's all in one app. So you just have one app for all of them. And then I guess it cloud syncs them somehow. So you could just install that app on your other devices and then log into the app, and then you have your one time. Because one thing that with Google Authenticator is every device has to be authorized to your Google Authenticator. And so when you get it, if you switch devices and don't authorize it, and you only have one device that's authorized, and you get rid of that device, you're really screwed. Whereas Authy, you would just download the app, install it, and then have all your one.
Yeah, but what's stopping someone else from downloading and authoring their phone to authorize me?
Well, and what's stopping somebody from using the password to the Authy app that they use for their Gmail, that they used on eBay, that they used on Gawker? Right. There's that problem too.
Right. Yeah. I'd rather be able to log into my Google account and add and remove devices at my will kind of thing.
Yeah.
Rather than, and I guess that's kind of what the Authy thing is doing, except for, how do you have two-factor authentication on the account that controls your two-factor authentication?
And the problem is I think two-factor authentication is still just a little too complicated for a lot of users.
Yeah.
They're going to mess up
really
that,
it comes down
losing
to,
the phone thing.
It comes down to you lose that as easy as you lose your password possibly, and then if it's the only way to, if the whole point is you can't reset your password without the two-factor token, how do you reset the two-factor token? And if disabling the two-factor token only requires your password, there's no point in having a two-factor token.
So one thing I know
so it gets really complicated.
Like with Google Authenticator, I know people have run into the problem where their phone's been destroyed and they didn't authorize their new one, and so they're really stuck because they need their two-factor codes to get into their accounts. I guess some people will. Like LastPass, for example, will give you a QR code that you just scan with with Google's two-factor app, and then it just links it to your account and sets it up. You can print, be careful where you store it, but you can print that QR code out.
As a fallback thing.
Yeah, and so I guess some people are doing that, and that's sort of their fallback.
Yeah, but I'm more likely to lose that piece of paper than to destroy my phone.
Yeah,
right?
me too. And now that I, and also thankfully I have multiple phones, so I don't actually ever hit that situation, but I have flirted with it closely. Like I didn't have one of my phones here that had the two-factor authentication, and I was like, wow, okay, that was close. That was close enough where it made me think about it a little bit. So that's why I was tempted by Authy, but it doesn't sound like.
Yeah, it seems like
the convenience never works out.
A bit of rush in the coding and stuff, and anybody can write a two-factor authentication service. It doesn't mean it's a good one.
When it comes to stuff like this, it needs to be done the right way.
Right, and I'm not actually trying to say that only Google can do it the right way, because in the end, I'd rather not trust Google.
Yeah.
But
they at least have one of the more solid and widespread implementations right now. And there's a lot out there.
I hope
but
Begerling hurries up and finishes the two-factor thing he was working on.
Oh yeah,
he wrote one for the University of Oslo, and they use it, but it's a little too hacky, and he doesn't want to just contributed to FreeBSD in its current state. He wants to make it nicer first. And
it's understandable.
Yeah. Well, that's yes and no. Every coder kind of has that problem. It's like, oh, I got this great stuff, but I don't want to open source it because I'm embarrassed by how bad it is.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if you just give it to us, it'll get better. And if we wait for you, it could be forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, I don't know. Is it time to get into it already about AsiaBSDCon?
Oh, you want to? Well, why don't we do that? So speaking of doing it right, let's talk about IX Systems real quick, and then we'll talk about AsiaBSDCon. So IX Systems, sponsor of the TechSNAP program, and really the supplier of pretty much all of Scale Engine's hardware. And anytime I need to buy something serious, something done right, something built with real quality care, powered by those incredible Intel Xeon processors, I go for IX Systems. I know that they have a deep bench of experts. They have great community connections, great hardware partners that they have established long-term connections with because they've been around for a long time. And I know they're not going anywhere. And I know their white glove service is truly going to take care of me. And over on IX, so go to ixsystems.com/TechSNAP. Go there, visit that page, learn more about IX Systems. It not only does that say thank you for sponsoring the TechSNAP program to IX, but it also is a great opportunity for you to learn sort of how a company that operates at this level organizes their product line and gets information out there. It's a much better experience than a lot of the other big OEMs you've probably gone with. So over on their What's New page, they have a post up there about AsiaBSDCon. IX Systems, obviously, at AsiaBSDCon. How was it, Alan?
I think you can see my ear in that picture.
I saw. Oh, you know what? While you talk, I could go. Maybe they might have another one. No, they had a great picture of you on. Chris wrote this post, huh? They had a great picture. Oh yeah, that might be your ear.
That's my ear. Yes.
Yeah. They had a great picture of you on Facebook though. I'll go find that one.
Well, actually, no. That might be Ken Moore's ear. Actually.
Yeah, maybe.
I forget where I was sitting. The other one, if you look on their What's New page there and scroll down to like March 9th, they also have a post about why cost isn't the only thing you should consider when you're buying your storage server.
Sure.
And while IX will most likely be the cheapest place, they're saying it's not the only thing you have to consider. You have to look at performance. Well, a ZFS-powered FreeNAS or TrueNAS is definitely going to outperform your Dell EMC NetApp or anything like that.
Oh, man.
And the other things are like the support, right? Their support you get from IX is you're talking to someone that actually knows what ZFS is and knows how it works.
Well, it deeply knows how it works.
Works in open source and actually does stuff.
And talks to the hardware, the hard drive manufacturers, and I mean all of that.
Yeah, right. And LSI that makes the controller cards and everything.
Yeah. Versus
someone who getting a call center outsourced to somewhere, and you'd be lucky if you can find out what time of day it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they also talk about their pre and post sales engineering. Actually being able to talk to someone about the hardware and what the stuff's going to be, before you buy it. If you call up Dell and want to buy a server, they're like, well, do you want this model or that model? And it's like, well, which one of these cards do I want? Well,
here's the workload. Let me tell you about the workload.
Exactly. With IX, you can be like, hey, this is what we're trying to do. This is what we're worried about. The problem being, this is how much performance we need at a minimum. And they're like, oh, well, if you need that much minimum performance, you need at least this much RAM and this much SSD and this much hard drive and so on.
Hey, look what I found. There's Alan Jude giving a talk, picture taken by IX Systems. Nice. Posted there you are in Tokyo.
That must have been taken by Drew, I'm guessing.
I bet.
Just from where the picture's coming from. That's where she was sitting.
I think these ones were all there, maybe by... Oh, no, that's Drew, so that's probably not true then.
Yeah, that one wasn't Drew.
Unless she's got
this was a great one. Okay, so the guy in the middle there is Daniel Lovsenko or something. I forget his name, last name, but it's Daniel. And he's new. He's a GSOC student, right? Google Summer of Code.
Yeah.
And there he is sandwiched between Matt Ahrens, the co-inventor of ZFS, and Kirk McKusick, the inventor of UFS. And getting the learning directly piped into his brain.
Yeah.
About they were like live debugging something, because he
looks happy.
Summer of Code project from last year was implementing the C typing framework to basically, when you're debugging the kernel, print out the data structures like human readable instead of like binary. Easily tell, all right, this is this struct member and it has this value, and oh, that's a string, and so this is what it actually says, and so on. And actually, I think after that conversation, they started doing a port of MDB, the Solaris debugger from Illumos that Matt Ahrens works on, to FreeBSD. And that's a project he's working on now that just kind of spontaneously happened in the lounge at AsiaBSDCon during lunch.
That is so neat. Oh, lots of eating, of course.
There's the back of my head as I'm eating.
Oh, so it's a pretty good crowd, huh?
Some of the translations of the food were pretty hilarious. The one, I don't know, I think somebody had a picture of it, but there was this big platter of pork something, right? And the translation of the Japanese name for it was like Kachitori of Boston pork butt.
Oh.
It's like, what?
No, that's not quite it.
It sounded good. It was pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I bet it was. Also, IX Systems has an overview of what's new in TrueNAS 9.3 up on the What's New page. So go over there. Go to ixsystems.com/TechSNAP.
A video coming out that I don't know if it's posted somewhere yet or not, but they have
with your face
talking about the new stuff for FreeNAS as well, and just a hilarious video about why you need a FreeNAS. I think it mostly went because your daughter is so nice that she decided your laptop looked thirsty and decided to share her apple juice with it.
Yeah, there's been that one.
And wouldn't you rather your files were backed up to your FreeNAS instead of not when your laptop gets apple juiced? But they also have that other one on the What's New page. If you scroll back far enough, where it's like, look what happens if you have silent corruption of your family photos. If you don't have ZFS, it's like one bit gets flipped. In a JPEG, and every pixel after that just goes all wonky. I think we showed that one on a previous episode.
Yeah,
right?
It's always a trauma, Alan. You're traumatizing me right now, Alan. You're traumatizing me. All right, so we have. Let's move on to our next story.
Oh, I had an actual point. One of the keynote at AsiaBSDCon was from Robert Els, who's one of the people that's been working on BSD since it was just BSD before all the projects started, when it was still at the University of Berkeley. He's actually from Australia, and he was one of the ones that brought some of that stuff over to Australia, and they worked on it. And he gave a great talk about how specifically, ugly code isn't necessarily bad, and you should share it, and we should use it, and then that will cause someone to come up with something better that we can then replace it with. Nothing's worse than no code at all.
Yes. Well put, Alan. That was a good point to make. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I forgot.
Yeah, no,
that was the point I was trying to make.
It's the sleep deprivation. It happens to both of us. We're both just a little floaty. It's cool. All right, so I want to talk about this next story because it could happen to anybody, but of course, when it's got GoDaddy's name in it, it makes headlines. It always makes headlines. What's going on here?
Well, and in particular, basically the same idea. We've seen, the Syrian Electronic Army do it to Twitter. We've seen, the Lizard Squad people to do it to people. And then in a different one, Lizard Squad actually hacked the registrar, which is completely different. But in this one, it's just some social engineering to take over a domain name. So in this one, it wasn't necessarily something bad happening to someone. It was a reporter got in touch with a security researcher, and they arranged for the security researcher to steal the reporter's GoDaddy account.
Okay.
And document the steps he went through and how it happened.
Okay. Just
to show you that it could be done, but also in a more controlled environment than, if you remember going through the aftermath of that Matt, somebody from, what was that tech journal? Remember he got his iPhone,
the guy that worked for Gawker for a little bit. Gosh, we always forget his name for some reason.
Yeah, Mike something or Matt something.
Matthew Aarons?
Something. No, not Aarons. That's the ZFS guy. Not Inman. That's the oatmeal guy. Yeah. It's something else.
Chatroom will tell us maybe in a minute or two. And I'll catch it.
But he had the Twitter account at Matt or something like that, really short. And so it was a 3-letter Twitter account, and that's why people were after it. Yeah. Anyway. It's kind of like that, except for this was a more controlled environment and nobody lost all their stuff, so that helps a lot. Anyway, so through a combination of social engineering, publicly available information, and some Photoshop government ID, it allowed the security researcher to take over the guy's GoDaddy account and all the domains that were inside of it. So just to kind of give you an idea what you could do if you were able to take over somebody else's account, is you could inject an attack into a website. So, if I took over the account for Jupiter Broadcasting, if the website is hosted in that account or whatever, I can, add an iframe to the page or something that will, use a Flash exploit against everybody that visits the page, right? Since it's the DNS control, I could redirect all the email. So now all the emails at jupiterbroadcasting.com go to my mail server. Maybe I forward them to the original Jupiter Broadcasting server after so that they don't notice that all their emails stop coming. But this way I get to see all the email. And then, if somebody registered their Twitter account as something at jupiterbroadcasting.com, I can go reset the password and, oh, look, I get the email.
Yes, of course.
They could also redirect the traffic to their own website. And just steal the traffic.
Sure.
Or they could buy an SSL certificate for your site, either by reissuing the one you've already bought for the site, if you happen to have bought it from GoDaddy and it's in your GoDaddy account, or by using the email intercept thing to intercept, hostmaster at jupiterbroadcasting.com and buying the certificate that way. Then they can do a man-in-the-middle attack, right? So they change the DNS for, jupiterbroadcasting.com to their web server. So the user goes over HTTPS to the bad server, which returns a valid certificate. So they're like, okay, this is the real site. Then the connection gets proxied over to the original jupiterbroadcasting.com. So now Chris goes and logs into the admin area, types in his password. It gets encrypted and goes to the bad server, where they then see the password, write it down or whatever, and then they can still send it over to the original server, and Chris doesn't realize that anything happened.
Right.
And now the bad guys have the password and can log in and do whatever they want on the site, like inject an iframe that uses a Flash exploit or Java exploit or something else.
Oh, sure. I go for a Flash one.
All kinds of things. Basically, once you have that, you have everything.
Flash ones are my favorite.
Yeah. But, this is why it was a big deal when, Twitter's got taken. Luckily, the bad guys, when they did that, all they did was, break the image to subdomain and stuff, they didn't actually manage to steal everybody's password for Twitter, because that could have resulted in some pretty big accounts getting hacked. And
would have made for a great episode of TechSNAP.
Yeah. But to kind of, the article has all the details, but to kind of give you a recap of what social engineering steps they went through.
Yeah.
First, they got a picture of a random guy to use as the picture of the reporter. It wasn't actually the guy's own picture. So
it looks pretty cranky in this picture.
Yes, although this goes to prove that GoDaddy wasn't actually checking the ID necessarily.
Oh, right.
Or,
maybe they're just using it as a data point or something. Yeah, because, I think about that. When I signed up for Mt. Gox, I had to give them my picture ID, and how would they know it's my picture?
Yeah, it's not like normally when you're using your ID to verify your identity, you're standing there. Yeah. And so they compare the picture to your face.
Yes.
But when it's online, they don't have something to compare to.
No. I mean, for me specifically, they could go find pictures of me pretty easily. But for pretty much everybody else who doesn't host podcasts.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is that they went and created a G+ profile for the guy with the fake picture.
Clever.
So if you go and Google the name, the Google Plus profile comes up first, because Google favors their own stuff, right?
No, never, no. Of course.
They also created a Gmail account in the victim's name, because you can always make just enough alterations so it looks like the right one, right? Then they call up GoDaddy support and be like, hey, I've lost control over my domain. I need to get it back. I have this excuse why I don't have access to the email address anymore. It's like, oh, there's office politics going on. I don't want to get into it or something. And then, so GoDaddy's like, well, we need the PIN number that you set. And they're like, well, I don't remember setting a PIN number. And, if your account's old enough, maybe you don't actually have one or something, right? And then they're like, well, what about the email address? And it's like, oh, well, I have my assistant register the domain for me. So
clever.
They did it with their email, and I don't have that right now, or they don't work for me anymore.
That would be my go-to one, too. That'd be my line. That'd totally be my line.
Or also, so it's like, so we need the last 4 digits of the credit card you used. It's like, oh, well, my assistant would have used the credit card ending in, 4432, and use some number I just made up. And it's like, oh, that's not the right one. So they're like, oh, okay, that's plausible, more than one credit card or whatever. I don't know which one it was.
Sure.
Or maybe they used their own credit card.
Sure.
Who knows?
You know what? Actually, honestly, I'm a bozo when it comes to credit cards. I just finally got it sorted out. So again, that would be my go-to line. This is actually sounding plausible.
Yeah. Creating a sense of urgency and please help me or whatever. So, when you're on the phone with them, you're like, I apologize both for not having all the information you want and for my daughter yelling in the background. I'm really trying to get this sorted out or whatever. And then so support person on the other end just laughs and says, oh, no, it's not a problem, whatever. Right? And then it goes on like this, and they basically just weasel their way out of every verification step. And then, if the domain is registered to a business, GoDaddy requires additional verification. Right? If it's registered in the name of a business or whatever, then they want official stuff on the company letterhead and so on. But since many people just make up a business, the whole point of, I'm buying this domain to start my business, and the business is called this, but I've not actually registered that name with the government or anything.
Right. It's usually one of the first things you do is kind of start playing around with that, get your domain.
Yeah. Or, I've had this domain forever and I never actually got around to starting the company. Or whatever. And so it's like, oh, well, that business doesn't really exist. So I don't have all the documentation you're looking for, like, a business registration or something like that. And, depending on what the verification is, looking at, I've not done the GoDaddy one, but other companies, if you just make up a letterhead with the company name on it, they'll accept that. Just send them a letter on, this is official letter from our company.
I've literally done that. I've done that because clients have had, their IT staff leaves and they have nobody left there that knows how to manage the domain and nobody's technical. And so I've just gotten on the phone and called them up. It's okay, what do you need? Oh, you need a letterhead? And I just made the letterhead because I'm just a contractor. I don't have a letterhead with a company.
I just literally made one up in Word. Made it look horrible so that it would look legitimate.
Yeah. Oh my God. Don't make it too nice, right?
Yeah. It's like, this is a standard Microsoft Word letterhead template with our company name in block letters and like some logo made out of squares or something. It's just horrible things like that. Basically there's always loopholes for every step. And if you can manage to fit through every one of the loopholes, then you just take over the domain.
When you're properly motivated.
Yeah. Well, in the end, the customer support representatives that you're talking to on the phone is there to help the customer. Right. That's their job.
Yeah.
It's usually rather difficult for them to get away with actually refusing to help you. And also, they can't just turn you away because you don't have all the details, or
because it's pretty common that people are incompetent. Incompetence is common.
Yes. Well, it's not just that. It's that, if I don't have that email address anymore, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Right. Then, then you fax us all this information and we do it or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, it's like, well, nobody has a fax machine anymore.
Seriously.
Right. So, Also, GoDaddy has an automated system that sends a notification to you every time there's a change on your account. So it said, hey, we changed your authorized email address over to this address, or, somebody changed your DNS settings and all this. But all these kind of happen after the fact. You get that email somewhere between like half an hour and 8 hours after the change. And so in that time, your traffic's already been hijacked.
Yeah. Jeez. Oh my gosh. So frustrating if that happens.
Instructions are, if you didn't do this, call us. And then you have to try to verify yourself against all these steps or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I guess I missed one of the, they talked about, you have to prove your address or give them your address and stuff. It's like, well, if they're looking at the Whois record, say against it, all you're doing is reading the Whois record to them and they're comparing, that's exactly right.
Right. Yeah. Unless they have privacy.
Yeah. And in which case you're reading GoDaddy's address back to GoDaddy.
Well, that looks like that looks like a valid address to me, sir. Very good.
Well, when you have the privacy thing, then GoDaddy's looking at the address they just didn't print.
Yeah.
But it's not that hard to find people's addresses.
Yeah, it's not.
So like Network Solutions requires you actually fax them stuff instead of just emailing it or whatever. And I think if you remember, Network Solutions started that thing where it's like, you have to pay us $1,500 a year.
Yes.
And then in that case, every time there's a change, we'll actually call you and make sure.
It's like their white glove domain locking service or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was ridiculous. But I guess if you're a big enough brand,
honestly, you have the same problem with that. It's like, I changed my phone number because I moved. Mm-hmm. And so I don't have access to that phone number for you to call me anymore. So how do I verify myself now? There must be some loophole for me to go through. And in the end, it all causes these problems.
Indeed, Alan. Jeez. Well, and like I said, when you're properly motivated, you'll find those loopholes.
Yeah. And so the reporter did a little bit of digging and found that, almost every domain name registrar has this same, send us the photo ID and
it's kind of the standard.
A utility bill to prove your address and so on. And they'll accept it. Because I've actually done that for one of the domain registrars I had was a reseller, and they went out of business. And so I had to deal with the company they were reselling for to get control of my domains. It was like a bunch of them was easy. It was like, I'll fax you this information or whatever. And then some of them it was a business, so I had to make up a fake letterhead. And one of them, because of what I was using the domain for, I registered in the name of William Riker and lived on Defiant Street or Enterprise Street or something like that.
Oh my God, Alan, he's such a geek. That's great.
And so that one was especially hard to get back, but I did manage to do it. Jumping through all these hoops to do it. And in their research, they found that hover.com, which is a fairly new registrar, but from the company that was one of the very first registrars when Network Solutions was demonopolized. So Hover is actually owned by Tucows, which is a company that owns Ting. It's one of the only registrars that doesn't allow photo ID as a form of verification. Specifically stating, quote, anyone could just whip something up in Photoshop, quote.
That's what they said?
Yes. Because Tucows has been on the internet for a very long time. They know how the internet works.
They know about trolls.
They understand computers.
Yeah, that's great.
So I guess I didn't really explain it, but in this, when they emailed GoDaddy a scan of the ID, they had got somebody else's Indiana driver's license. Right? So the attacker guy just got some person he knew in Indiana to send a scan of his driver's license, then edited the information and try to match the fonts. But as long as you make all the fonts the same, they don't actually have to match what a driver's license necessarily looks like, right?
Yeah.
If you're working for GoDaddy in Arizona, you probably don't know what an Indiana driver's license even looks like per se.
So there's kind of an example of what they did there.
Yeah, and so they just photoshopped in a different picture and made it grainy, and all of a sudden they had this valid looking driver's license.
Yeah. That was the actual one submitted to GoDaddy too.
Well, except for I think less blurred. In a couple
yeah.
They say GoDaddy issued a response saying GoDaddy has stringent processes and a dedicated team in place for verifying the identity of customers when a change of account/email is requested. While our process and team are extremely effective in thwarting illegal requests, no system is 100% effective. Falsifying government-issued identification is a crime when consent, even if consent is given. That we take very seriously and will report to law enforcement where appropriate.
Oh yeah, they're serious about it. I'm sure they. Yeah. They'll probably be adjusting their policies too, I bet.
A little bit, yes. Because I think, at one point it's that, they faxed us a driver's license. That must be legitimate, rather than actually looking into it and being like, hey, is this driver's license ID number even real? Mm-hmm. Or does the name... I don't know if you can interface with like the DMV to be like... I know with credit cards, when you're a business, you can call a bank...
Yeah.
And ask them yes or no questions. So you can be like, is the name on this card number blah? And they can say yes or no. All right, they don't give away any information.
Yes, right.
But they can verify that the name on the card matches the card number. I don't know if you can do the same thing with DMV. Like, so I have a driver's license with this number. Is the name on it blah?
Somebody probably can. I don't know how accessible that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how easy it is for GoDaddy to actually go from a driver's license to establishing whether that's actually the person or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I don't know either.
But it definitely seems like they just weren't doing that.
Yeah. Well, that takes time.
That entirely could be because it's literally not possible for them to do that because of government privacy rules or whatever.
Well, and they got a lot of customers, and there's only so much time in the day.
I think, honestly, this account reset thing doesn't happen all that often. Most people go through one of the easier ways to get it back because you don't usually lose access to everything. Or, at some point people just give up and be like, well, I didn't want that domain that badly anyway.
Yeah. Oh, well.
But yeah, it seems like maybe for some of this stuff, losing control of the account, if they're going to change the email address or something, should involve something like, well, we're going to send an email to the original address being do you authorize this? And if we don't get a response after 7 days, then we'll maybe switch the email to the new one to give the person with the original address a chance to say no. That's not foolproof, but it's definitely something extra.
It's another step, yeah.
Although you're imposing this 7-day waiting period.
Yeah, and customers hate that.
Yes, but it might be a decent trade-off.
Yeah, I agree. Or maybe at least you could opt into it. That'd be nice, right? Check a box. If I ever take an action like this, require additional authorization. Let me opt into it. I would do that. Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, that's about it.
All right. Well, then I'll tell you something I opt into. Freaking DigitalOcean, sponsor of the TechSNAP program, and DigitalOcean is awesome. They're a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way for you to spin up your own cloud server. You can get started in less than 55 seconds, and I've seen some pretty impressive numbers in my day, but I've actually even seen people tweet me like 36 seconds, 26 seconds. It's crazy.
I think I did 35 on mine.
That's nuts. Do you remember which data center you did it in?
New York.
Oh yeah. I got a droplet. I got 2 droplets in New York. I got one in San Francisco. I don't have one in London anymore, but I did for a short period of time. I move them around. It's super easy to do it too. Essentially what I do is I template them. And then when I'm done with that machine and I want something else, I turn it off. And then when I'm ready to start my next project, I resume from the template. And I get started right where I left off. It's only $5 a month to get a rig with 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, 1 CPU, and a terabyte of transfer. And DigitalOcean has data center locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, and London. And their interface, it's great. And this is one of the things that really, when I started trying out DigitalOcean before they even became a sponsor, I saw this and I thought, whoa, this is something I can get behind. I like this a lot. And I think you will too. It's very intuitive. And it's all done on the web. It's all very responsive. So like I've actually done it from my phone. I've done it from my desktop. And they have an HTML5 console too, which is really great. So you get to watch that system completely boot up. And it's really nice because you can then replicate the functionality with their straightforward API. A lot of good community apps are already doing that too, so you don't even have to write one, but you can. You can snap it into your management infrastructure or just manage it from your desktop or a smartphone or from a script. It's really cool, and they have a ton of great tutorials, including some good stuff on FreeBSD, because you can also create a FreeBSD droplet. So go over to DigitalOcean and bring our promo code. What was that?
I've done that.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty cool, huh?
I'm using a DigitalOcean droplet in production currently.
Yeah. Oh, nice. And you're happy with it?
Yep.
Yeah,
it's very easy.
Yeah, I have several of them, and if you use the promo code SNAPOcean, one word, lowercase, you'll get a $10 credit on your account, and then you can try out that $5 rig for 2 months for free. So again, use our promo code SNAPOcean. That's one word, it's lowercase. That supports the show, gets you a $10 credit. Try out some of the stuff we've been talking about. Play with CoreOS, play with FreeBSD, play with OwnCloud, GitLab. All of that stuff is available, and why not do it on some super fast hardware with a great connection that you can publicly work on? It's nothing like the real thing. And you can get it over at DigitalOcean.com and try it for 2 months for free when you use our promo code SNAPOcean. Go over to DigitalOcean, and a big thanks to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the TechSNAP program. Thanks, DigitalOcean. You guys rock. Hey, Alan, how about before we run into the feedback segment, we mentioned, because we didn't get a chance to do this last week, people can download episode 81 of BSD Now, Puffy in a Box. Puffy in a Box. Just posted a bit ago, and this would be a great time, about midway through that TechSNAP program, to start the HD download. Any notes of interest on this one, Alan? I suppose you guys talked a lot about AsiaBSDCon in there, huh?
We had a bit of a recap of AsiaBSDCon, but I'm sure that'll kind of just go on for weeks as we remember more and more of the great things.
Yeah.
And as we're more and more awake.
Yeah.
Also, I think next week is one of our interviews from AsiaBSDCon. It's a really good one.
Puffy, let's see. OpenBSD and their line of commercial routers. Oh, cool.
Yes. So that's an interview with a developer from Calyptix, which is a company that makes small business routers powered by OpenBSD. Cool. And we get to talk a bit about how they use it and what they do, but also mostly just interviewing the developer and talking about how he first got into OpenBSD. And I think his story was actually that he was a Windows user and lost all of his Pascal and BASIC code to a virus.
Oh no!
And suddenly got very interested in computer security.
Oh no!
And after playing with Linux for a bit, heard about OpenBSD and found that he really liked that, and has been there ever since.
Very cool. So check it out. It is episode 81 of the BSD Now program. I'll give a quick mention. We're trying to raise some money for Linux Fest Northwest. Alan will be there. We'll have a TechSNAP in studio that week, which we'll probably do a couple of them. Also, Chris Moore will be out at Linux Fest Northwest if all goes as planned, and so I'm sure there'll be a BSD Now. Have you guys ever done a full episode in person?
No, we've not. So
the Linux
doing
Fest,
that live will be quite interesting.
Yeah, the Linux Fest guys have also offered a room for you guys to conduct interviews in if you want a little quieter spot. Yeah, so
perfect.
Yeah, I'll follow up with them on that. And so we're trying to raise some funds because we're trying to get the whole crew out to Linux Fest Northwest, and we're going to be paying for some travel and some stay for some of the crew. And you can help by going to teespring.com/Linux and grabbing a Linux Action Show shirt, hoodie, long sleeve jacket, or a shirt, not a jacket. Or the kids' tee, and we have a couple different colors. I really love the blue this time.
That blue looks really nice.
Yeah, and
too bad the logo says Linux on it.
I know, right? I know. Well, I know. You know what, Alan? Sometimes
I'm just teasing.
It's a Linux Fest after all. Yes. The idea being that people could grab this if they're going to the fest and they could wear it.
The blue hoodie.
Yeah, and also the maroon long sleeve.
The red actually looks quite good too.
And the long sleeves are really my favorite ones.
Do you have the tee in maroon?
I don't know. Let's see. Let me see. I think we have it in a different color. It's a slightly brighter. I don't really like that one as much. Yeah. I think the long sleeve would look good on you.
Yeah. I like red.
So you can grab one and you can party with us in spirit, or you can show up to the fest with one. And we'll also be live streaming that weekend. It's the last weekend of April. And so we invite on it. Really, I mean, we'll be doing TechSNAP stuff too. So if you're going to make it out there, if you're a fan of the TechSNAP program, you can go to Linux Fest Northwest. So I'll go right there. Linux Fest. Boy, I go to a lot of things with Linux in the URL. It turns out I got a lot of things in my. So it's April 25th and the 26th, and you can register now, and we'll all be there, rocking it. So we'd love to see you, and if you could help us by going to teespring.com/Linux. We haven't sold a lot of the shirts, so we're scaling back our plans a little bit, but we still really want to do as much as we possibly can, and you can help us get closer by going over there, or also just contributing to our patrons over at patreon.com/today, which helps with this fest and future initiatives. All right, boy, that's a lot of stuff to talk about, but we got a lot going on these days. It's pretty exciting, and we've got a lot of really good emails, too. So without any further ado, it's time for the TechSNAP feedback. Thanks for sending your feedback to TechSNAP at JupiterBroadcasting.com, or pop in that contact link at the top of the Jupiter Broadcasting website, or even better, which nobody did this week, starting a thread in our subreddit over at TechSNAP.reddit.com. But our first email is a good one. It's an update from longtime viewer Jed, who, speaking of Linux Fest Northwest, is probably already excited at the idea of shooting me in the head with Nerf missiles. Undoubtedly, he's already giggling to himself. And he writes in to give us an update from last week, where we said, hey, give us some ideas for securing an Apache server. We rattled off a few in episode 204. Jed says he recommends you configure things like PHP to INI settings to have open_baster, which will defeat any fopen calls to unauthorized areas of the server.
Open_baster basically kind of chroots your app. It means everything you open has to be inside that directory. So it stops your app from opening files outside of there, which can be a good thing. It keeps, especially if, for example, uploaded content goes somewhere else, but then you can't reach it. Anyway, open_baster is fairly useful. And then he mentioned specifically to defeat any fopen calls, but then he talks about the disable_functions list, which allows you from the web server to say, hey, PHP, don't allow these functions. One of them you can allow is don't allow fopen. Now, depending on what application you're going to be running, that might not work. But in general, you can allow, you can be like, hey, no connecting to remote sites at all. And that secures it down a lot. It keeps people from injecting code that then pulls in an exploit from somewhere else. The downside is it can also break the automatic update feature of WordPress or whatever. But
what do you think about this? Is use PHP 5.6, where all safe mode
5.6 they re-architected all of PHP basically and got rid of the idea of safe mode and basically made it always be safe instead of a feature you could turn on that breaks most apps. Safe mode was never very good, and so the redesign is much better. And he mentions Suhosen, which is quite good. It allows you to restrict certain things, but it also adds some features that we're missing. If your OS doesn't provide bcrypt, it adds support for it into PHP for you. It's quite useful.
Yeah, he also says, why not move SSH to a higher number port, install fail to ban, install aid and run it, clam AV, and scan all the uploads that hit your server, and install TigerCron. It will alert you to open ports and insecure pathings.
And he also mentions disable any unused services, right? Anything on your server that you don't need, don't be running it, because if you don't use it, you won't remember to update it, and it can be a vector, right? And just the smallest attack surface you can get. Get rid of everything you don't need.
Thank you, Jed. Good update, good input. Dave writes in, he says, hey, how can I set up an SSH server in order to encrypt the computer internet traffic? I read one day on Lifehacker that I can use SSH to encrypt the web traffic from the web to SSH server, and after that I can connect to the SSH server. So he wants to set up an SSH server for anonymous web surfing. I would have made maybe from work or something like that.
Right. So basically, you can run the SSH client on your computer, and it'll connect to the SSH server that's actually going to relay your traffic. And the SSH client on your computer will listen on a port. So you set that, and then you tell your web browser to use localhost : that port as a proxy.
Yeah, and if your client is Windows, PuTTY makes it really easy to do this.
Yep.
And you can
so does the command line SSH client.
Yeah.
You can just set it and run it, and then you configure your Firefox or Internet Explorer or whatever you want to use to go through it, and then you can point that at a DigitalOcean droplet for $5 and bounce all your traffic off that.
And you can use that. You use the proxy setting in Firefox to do that, and then or in Chrome or in IE. Yep. And then so that way you don't even have to send all traffic through it if you don't want to, and you could have just one browser.
This web browser session.
Yeah, or just
one thing to be careful of is some things like plugins and so on might not use the proxy setting and will connect directly, which could leak your IP address.
Also, remember anything you do beyond that SSH server is not encrypted. So
Right.
don't do anything illegal on your home connection over it because it's going to be tracked back to your IP. It's just the data sent from the server to the client that is encrypted. And what your work would see, say if you're at work,
between
is
you and the DigitalOcean droplet is all this encrypted over SSH.
Yeah.
Then it's up to whatever your connection is. If it happens to be HTTPS, then it is encrypted. But if it's not, then it's not.
So Count Zero wrote in to show us a kind of a cool story. He's doing like a mini roundup for us. He says, "Hey, Chris and Alan, maybe it's old news to you guys, but it's making some news in my local outlet. It seems like it would be a pretty easy one to spot, but then I guess most ATM users are not all that vigilant. So check this out, Alan. I don't know if the picture really sells this one, but I'll describe it for our audio audience too. And thank you, Count Zero, for sending this in. It is a credit card skimmer, I think. Here, I'm loading up right now. Oh, except for they want me to take a survey." Skip the survey. Are you serious? Wow. So there you go. There you go. So here it is. They're using an iPod Nano on the inside as I guess maybe like the compute. I don't know what the iPod.
Or just the storage.
Yeah.
Some storage in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's the card slot with an iPod on the other end and then the camera hole too. So they're getting the pin with that. Oh, because it has a camera. Right. So they're using that to get the pin code, I bet.
Yep. Right. So the iPad Nano is just sitting there as part of the front of the, they break out the plastic and stick this in one of the parts that's supposed to be. And it's basically an iPod that's activated and records you typing on the keypad.
That is some dirty play. Thanks for sending that in, Count Zero. That's it.
Yeah, and it's got a fake card slot that goes on over top of the real card slot and skims your card.
Oh, the things you can use iPods for, huh? Who knew?
Yep.
I did not know. All right.
Commodity hardware.
I can't believe we made it this far into the feedback and haven't had a ZFS question. Here we go. Danny writes in, "I recently found your show and it's been a great resource not only for understanding issues encountered in securing today's computer systems, but also for an introduction to FreeBSD, ZFS, etc. I'm looking to build a home NAS, probably around 8 terabytes, and I have been researching both FreeNAS and NAS for free. ZFS also piqued my interest." He says, who doesn't like keeping your data safe, right? "I have the chance to pick up a Highpoint Rocket Raid 2720 SGL controller along with some other parts like a motherboard, CPU, power supply, etc., etc., etc. I plan to use and build it trying to have a reasonable budget. But here's my question. If hardware RAID is an option, as it is in this case, for a relatively small storage size, would you recommend still using ZFS, or would the hardware RAID be a better option? I've looked at running ZFS on hardware RAID, but the general consensus I got was, don't do it. Thanks for your help. Keep up the great work. I look forward to hearing from you." So what do you think? If it's a small amount of disks?
You always want ZFS.
There you go.
In general, oftentimes on the card, you can use the JBOD mode. Looking at the specs, every one of the cards listed on this 2720 series has the option to just do jumbled bunch of disks. So if you can just pass each disk through individually, you get most of the advantages of ZFS that way.
That would definitely be.
And then you can still use the card. Skip the card if you can. But if you need it to provide enough ports for all the hard drives, then you can use it.
There you go. Great, straightforward answer. Brett writes in with our next ZFS question. He says, "Love TechSNAP, and I have a question that I hope you might be able to address on the show. What is the recommended way to perform a backup of a MySQL database using ZFS snapshots?" Now, I could probably just stop right there.
We could start, yeah. A couple of things. You can... Obviously, you want the snapshots, but also you're going to want to enable the binary logging as well. And so basically, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. The way we do it at Scale Engine is we run a read-only slave off of the main server, and it has the binary logging turned on. So it logs every query that changes the database. And then the slave pulls the file over and runs the queries and updates its copy. So then we can pause the slave, make it dump all the SQL out as an SQL backup text file. So it gives us a consistent snapshot of every database at exactly the same second, and then we can store those. And we then we keep the binary logs. So if we do a dump once a day, and we have the binary logs from the second after the dump starts. Up till the second something went wrong, we can then import that back up and then replay those logs to get caught back up. even on a single server, if you have snapshots, SQL, because it's transactional, will have the ability to recover, and ZFS in itself being transactional and consistent means that your live system will never lose more than like 3 to 5 seconds of data is the most you could possibly lose on ZFS. So if you do a snapshot, you're going to get a fairly consistent snapshot of everything that happened. You just might miss something that's being written right in the window of while you're doing the snapshot. But it does, between SQL and ZFS, you're already guaranteed to get something consistent.
And this is so the database is going to be driving his Kodi, XBMC media center. So I would imagine that the write amounts there is not very high unless he's constantly adding media files or constantly playing and storing metadata about the playback. But if it's just a family household, I bet there's not a huge time window where that snapshot's taking place and a bunch of stuff's happening. And even if you miss a few things, it's just your media center.
Well, the best part is that between ZFS and MySQL, you're already guaranteed that what you're going to get is consistent.
Yeah.
It just might be consistent as of a second or two ago.
That's not that bad for this setup, really.
So basically, when you do a snapshot, ZFS is going to flush any outstanding writes, and you're going to get that consistent snapshot anyway. So,
okay, there you go.
So your best bet is do a snapshot of the data set that holds your database, and then you can back that up remotely to something else, either via replication or just by your regular backup means. Just do it from the snapshot, and you'll be good. Cool. If you want to be more consistent, you can actually do, flush tables with read lock or something like that, then do your snapshot and then release the lock, and that'll make sure that MySQL has flushed everything before you take the snapshot. So he has a link to an old Oracle blog where they actually kind of have a little script there where it basically logs into the SQL server, does flush tables with read lock, then does the ZFS snapshot, then unlocks the table, and that ensures that MySQL has flushed everything out and won't do anything until you finish taking the snapshot, and then you unlock it right away.
And if you're listening and you want a link to that, you go just find Brett's email, and then it's linked in Brett's email.
Yeah, it's in the show notes.
In the show notes, yep. Cool. Well, hopefully that helps you out, Brett. Good luck with that. Alan, this last one is ZFS related, but it's not actually so much a question. I think Smash was just picturing your massive Nexus 6 and how it needs somehow to have some sort of ZFS thing on that Nexus 6, even if the Nexus 6 itself isn't running it. He says, I thought this was a pretty neat and simple app to monitor your ZFS file systems over SSH. So it uses SSH from the phone to connect in and get stat information and then pulls it all into a display on your Android phone. Pretty cool.
So it's actually like parsing the zpool status output.
I think so.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah, I think I'm going to set this up.
Yeah.
I think I will because, just take a quick look at it. And, here at the studio, we don't really check it that often. So if this gets me to check it from before I get a surprise. And it's... you're
using a FreeNAS for most of your ZFS storage, are you not?
Yeah, I could just go to the web.
You can actually have it email you when there's a problem.
Oh, I suppose I could.
If you actually configure it.
Yeah, I probably have. And it's free. It's a free app, so very cool.
That's cool. I wonder if that app would be easier. One of the other things, apparently it works with OpenSolaris, FreeBSD, and even NAS for free and FreeNAS.
Yeah.
Because I was doing SSHing in and doing zpool status. Well, the best part is because of the way ZFS is designed, a bunch of these commands don't require root to do, and the ones that do, usually you can do ZFS allow some user, like, a user named phone, to do certain commands that normally require root. So you can allow an unprivileged user to do, for example, take a snapshot, right? So we're just talking about that MySQL backup script. It's like, well, taking a snapshot of the database, I'd like to put that in a script, and I would like to not have to run that script as root.
Yeah.
Well, the ZFS delegation framework, ZFS allows you to actually say, allow this user to take snapshots, but only of the database.
Boy, that really is the mother file system. That is so amazing. Yes. That is great. Gosh. Well, so there you go. If you have ZFS somewhere, take advantage of that app. All right, Alan, well, that brings us to the end of the feedback. We still have a few more emails, but we want to get more of them. So please go over. You can start. Hey, you know what? How about a thread in our brand new subreddit? Yeah, it's brand new. Just set it up during the feedback segment. You can find it. Go to techsnap.reddit.com, start a thread there, or email the show directly. Just go to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click the contact link, choose TechSNAP from the drop-down, and then our robots will deliver it to the correct location, and we'll answer it in a future episode. All right, well, with the emails all done, that means it's time for the TechSNAP roundup. Welcome to the TechSNAP Roundup. Yeah, that's what that crazy music means. Now, the roundup of stories that just didn't quite fit at the top of the show. We still want to go over them and give you some links to read even more on your own after the show. And you know what? A portion of these links, they came from this brand new subreddit that I just set up a couple of seconds ago during the break over at techsnap.reddit.com. You should go check that subreddit out. Make the show even better. What the hell? techsnap.reddit.com. All right, Alan, our first story this week. I'll just get a little punchy. I was wondering, like, will we hear anything more from Cisco when it was revealed that the NSA was intercepting Cisco packages to install malware on them? Well, Now Cisco has responded, and they're doing it by sending hardware to like illegitimate addresses, using empty boxes. Like they're just trying to confuse the NSA.
Things. So they're using like dead drops where they'll just ship the package to some random place and then the customer will go pick it up, or they'll just like shipping to like random small company in random small town or whatever, and then it actually eventually ends up at AT&T or somewhere.
Doesn't that seem...
Basically, because the NSA was intercepting their shipments to their bigger customers to inject malware, they're like, well, for some of our big customers, we'll just ship it to fake small businesses and dead drops and other things. And they said some of the places, some of the big customers now will just reship a supply to a distributor, and they'll just go and pick it up in person so that they know it wasn't being intercepted.
So I guess the subcontext to that is, then these must be customers that are specifically going out of their way to place orders with Cisco and not have their information in the order somehow, right? Like these must be customers that are specifically concerned if they're going to pick up
these are
stuff.
Customers who have had their Cisco gear infected by the NSA and would like new Cisco gear to not be infected by the NSA.
Doesn't this whole approach that Cisco's taking though, like just reek of desperation?
Yes.
Shipping it to
they've already emailed like Barack Obama and said like, hey, you're killing us over here.
Yeah.
How are we supposed to sell our product anywhere if everybody assumes it's full of NSA spyware?
Pretty pathetic. It's pretty sad. All right, Alan, the next story is yours, I do believe, and it is coming from Mr. Brian Krebs.
Yeah. Actually, this one's yours, but anyway. So there was a dark web digital underground shop called Evolution Market. Krebs got a snapshot there of what the fraud section looked like.
It's nice. It's nice.
Credit cards from different places.
I'd buy from that.
All the different things. They had, credit cards for sale for 0.017 Bitcoins and things like that.
I wonder if it's responsive.
Well, that's a picture of the website because the website's down now.
I know, but it's a really good-looking website for this.
Yeah, so they had all these, different things for sale, all of them illegal. Well, the site randomly went down the other day, and the merchants are now speculating that the founders of the site have made off with $12 million worth of Bitcoins.
Joy. That's the story I saw.
At some point, you're just like, the risk of getting hunted down is too high.
Yeah.
Why don't you just take all this money and disappear?
Yeah, of course, right? Of course that's what you're going to... That's your output. But
also, just the fact that people selling stolen credit cards get robbed.
Yeah.
The irony of the people that, hack into things and steal things.
Yeah. Getting ripped off.
Yeah, people going out of the way to rip people off, getting ripped off by the places they were using to sell that information to people.
Yeah.
So I stole all these credit cards and I'm trying to sell them, and I got robbed.
Jeez.
It's like, well, yeah, kind of should have known better.
All right, so guess what? Another Cisco story. Cisco freaks out.
So
it starts with epic OpenSSL bug spat.
Well, so this one in particular. So when OpenSSL released their security advisory in January, they said the Freak SSL vulnerability with the export encryption downgrade stuff that we talked about wasn't very high probability of being exploited because not that many people use the old export stuff.
And you were kind of like...
this week revised that high precedence because it turns out a lot of people still do.
Yeah.
And Cisco was one of them. Every one of their appliances was still accepting the old export cipher stuff.
Oh, right? Okay, now that's where it goes embarrassing.
Cisco's like, all about backwards compatibility. We don't ever want to be like, our device can't talk to your old thing, right?
Right.
So they have a huge list on their website of the things that are vulnerable, and they're slowly working on patches, and they're giving the patches away for free. Normally some Cisco updates require you to have an active subscription, and if you don't, you have to pay from the time you cancel your subscription, back pay, since you canceled your subscription up till today, as if you had paid all along in order to get the patch. But for these SSL patches, they are giving them away for free.
Good guy, Cisco.
We haven't really mentioned it yet. It's coming up shortly. Is the announcement about the OpenSSL stuff?
Yeah,
it kind of got buried in the docs.
All right. So, but first, something kind of neat. Every now and then, I like to see what Facebook's doing in their server data center, because they've done some pretty innovative stuff there. And they kind of been, thinking outside the box. So they've introduced this Yosemite Open Server Chassis. They've been working with Intel, and it's part of the Open Compute project. It's Facebook's effort with this started off in 2011, and we've covered it several times.
The problem with one of their first renditions of servers is that we're slightly too wide to fit in a standard rack, because they used wider racks.
So take a look at this. So Facebook has talked about several projects that they've had, different iterations of this. Their latest chassis is named Yosemite. It holds 4 system-on-a-chip processor cards and provides the flexibility and power efficiency for their data centers. And they're going to contribute the design to their Open Compute project, so you can adopt and build upon it. Each server node holds a single system-on-a-chip with a 65-watt thermal design, multiple memory channels, and at least one solid-state drive. They also have local management controllers, so you can, obviously control them. And then this Yosemite system, the really powerful system, you can get 4 system-on-a-chip server modules, 400 watts of total power, or about 90 watts for each module. And for those of you not watching the video version, they're pretty narrow. They look about the size of the power supplies for old HP servers. They're really pretty.
Speaking of this, at AsiaBSDCon, there was a company showing off similar sized modules. They kind of look like small video cards.
Oh, yeah.
It was an system on a chip of an Atom C2720 or something. That's like one step slightly slower than the one you get in the FreeNAS Mini. But it's got that. It's got an onboard mSATA, and then 4 memory, laptop style sized chips of RAM. So you got 32 gigs of RAM, the 8-core processor, and I think it was 120 gig mSATA SSD, plus full BMC and everything on each of these little cards.
Nice.
And in a 2U chassis.
Oh yeah.
They managed to fit 46 of them.
What?
Yes.
I thought you were going to say they fit all in a 2U chassis.
No. They fit 46 separate Atom-powered computers like this thing they're showing here that has 4.
Yeah.
They fit 46 of them, and each one uses like 30 watts or something.
That's so awesome.
And you can replace, in the front row, you can replace each module with one that fits the 2.5-inch hard drives.
Yeah.
So more SSDs or something.
Yeah.
Also, each one has a 2.5 gigabit per second NIC.
Oh.
That connects into the backplane, and the server itself has 4 40 gigabit NICs so that you can connect all 46 boxes at high speed to your switch. And then they're like, if you filled a rack with these, you get like just less than 6,000 processors or something like that.
Huh. Wow, the Atom processors are really stepping up to a whole new level now.
Yeah. With this thing, if you filled a rack with 2U of these 2U servers with 46 nodes each, you would have just less than 6,000 processors. And they had a comparison, comparing that to building regular systems in 2U systems where you fit, I think, like 4 Xeon E5s or whatever.
Yeah.
Or maybe they were comparing to E3s, I forget. But they found that while the Atoms are slightly slower, the fact that you can fit so many more of them means that if your workload is a type where it can benefit from that many cores, you'll actually end up saving power, because it's like the Atoms are like 30% slower but use 50% less power. So in the long run, you're saving power.
Interesting stuff, Alan. I would love to see something like that. That sounds like a really cool demo.
I have like a picture, but not. Chris took a bunch of good pictures. I'll have to get his pictures.
Yeah.
And
I guess they're probably running BSD, huh?
They have it running FreeBSD 10.1. Yeah.
Cool.
There will be a presentation about it at BSDCan.
Okay.
It's on the schedule. The schedule for BSDCan came out the other day as well.
Oh, I'll take a look. So our next one is
looking at page 2 of this Facebook thing. The other thing they have is OpenBMC, an open baseboard management controller.
Yeah.
Now that could be very interesting because currently all the BMC stuff is proprietary and garbage.
Oh, it's their own implementation of it.
Yeah, Facebook has released OpenBMC, which is their thing.
That could be a big deal.
And it's open. And that could be a good thing.
Yeah, sure could.
I would definitely like to have a very solid BMC thing that wasn't crap.
Yeah.
And be able to replace all my... it's probably too much to ask to be able to replace all the ones on my existing servers.
Maybe in the future,
my future servers have an OpenBMC that I could update or customize or just know was not totally insecure.
Totally. Yeah.
Or could know wasn't running an outdated version of DropBear.
Next story in the roundup is a picture from Mr. Krebs. Did he tweet this one?
Yes, he tweeted this one.
What is this, Alan? I can't quite read it.
So Hilton Honors, which if you remember, that's the hotel reward program.
Yeah.
And remember they were having that problem where people would steal the accounts and then like stay in hotel rooms for free using up all your points?
Yes.
Well, Hilton Honors has launched a campaign to get everybody to change their password, possibly just to help prevent this.
Yeah.
But also I think they've upped their password complexity requirements. So anyway, if you go into your Hilton Honors account and reset your password before April 1st, they will give you 1,000 free Hilton Honor points. I don't know if that's a lot of points or a few points, but it's free points just for going.
1,000 sounds like a lot to me, but I don't know. Maybe a candy bar is 2,000 points or something for all I know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know how many points you get for staying.
It's a good number though. It's a good solid number.
Yes. Free stuff for resetting your password seems like, or for changing your password every so often. It seems like lots of sites and games could do that. Be like, hey, don't want to get your game account hacked?
Right.
If you reset your password every 6 months, we will give you free something, even if it's only minor. People will do
cartel coins or Zen points or whatever.
Exactly.
All right, I'm going to hook up the audience, the ladies and gentlemen in the audience who prefer to maybe browse the naughtier side of the web and they use Apple's Safari web browser. You might want to stop. It looks like if you can get access to the SQLite database that Safari holds in your library Safari folder, it's kind of silly. It's not like a history one so much. It's like the Favicon database. Yeah.
So like in Firefox, you have the history and the awesome part and a bunch of stuff.
Right.
And when you engage private mode, it specifically skips all of those. But it seems that they in Safari, they forgot to say, hey, don't save the favicons.
Yeah, it's interesting because the way Safari happens to do it is when you start Safari in private mode, it essentially just creates an entirely new user configuration directory that's a totally fresh config. And then when you close that private window, it destroys that config. But this outside of it for the favicons remains.
They're like, hey, why don't we just have one big database for all the users so we don't download the same icon many times?
Yeah. So there you go. You got to be careful.
Information leakage.
Chris's secondary pro tip is if you're going to get busted looking at porn, then you probably have another conversation you need to have. And don't use Safari. Just don't use Safari. I don't care what else. Don't use or Internet Explorer. Just do me a solid. Don't do that. So you teased it a little bit ago, Alan. We do have some OpenSSL security advisory stuff to dig into. You want to start?
Yes. So they had their big advisory. The kind of interesting thing is that the advisory is not quite as big as they were. They're like, oh, there's a big advisory coming out this Thursday. Yeah. And then they're
here we are on Thursday, and it's not so big.
They upgraded the export RSA 1 to severity high.
Okay.
And they had a denial of service one where basically you can crash OpenSSL. So if you do it to somebody's web server, you can keep crashing it until it stays down, doing a denial of service. So that one is marked high, and then they have like moderate, low. And that's it. There's no like extremes like there were with Heartbleed.
So they're still not quite as amped up about it then.
Yeah. Well, one of the other interesting ones is one of the low ones. They just specifically say here, that they don't think it's very common or it wouldn't happen very often. And it's like, well, that's what you said about the freak one, and then the next 2 months later, you upgraded it to high because it turns out you were wrong. So just because they mark it low doesn't mean we shouldn't fix it.
I guess maybe they're trying to resist marking anything that has to do with OpenSSL at scale as severe.
Well, if it actually is severe,
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. If what can happen is bad, even if it's not very likely to happen, it seems like that needs to be a high.
Right. The scale of the bad that could happen is important.
Yeah, rather than the scale of likelihood it could happen. Because as much as we think, many months ago, you remember we talked about the row smashing or whatever, the way where if you read and write from memory a bunch of times, you can cause a bit to be flipped on purpose. And we talked about, everybody says, oh, well, we don't think it will be really practical to exploit that. Well, last week, somebody found a way to reliably exploit it and do interesting things with it. So it's like, oh, turns out we're not very good at guessing what kind of thing could be exploited. Once we have the details, anything could be exploited. So, at that point, we have to consider that when we're reading these advisories. And more importantly, they should consider it when they're writing them. That just because something is, and that's kind of, the CVS scores kind of have that, right? They have how bad it is, how easy it's to exploit, how likely it's to be exploited. And using those 3 scores kind of separates out from, gives you a better idea of how bad it is.
Yeah.
Is it clear one number? And how likely is a different number?
Yes.
And then you can decide, well, being an outfit that's definitely going to be under attack, we have to consider that just because it's unlikely doesn't mean it's not going to happen. If it's going to happen to someone, it's probably going to be us.
Yeah.
So, hey, high severity means install the patch. So
I do prefer that approach.
And also, I think everybody at this point should have an easy mechanism for updating their OpenSSL.
Mm-hmm.
So just talking about the impact of a couple of them. 0209, a malformed elliptic curve private key file can cause server daemons using OpenSSL to crash, resulting in a denial of service. 0286, a remote attacker who is able to send a specially crafted certificate may be able to crash an OpenSSL server or client. 0287, an attacker who can cause invalid writes with applications that parse structures containing the choice or any defined by components and reuse those structures may be able to cause them to crash. Such reuse is believed to be rare. OpenSSL clients and servers are not affected. But an application that uses the library could be affected. Mm-hmm. 0288, an attacker may be able to crash applications that create a new certificate request with a subject name the same as an existing specifically crafted certificate. You say this usage is rare in practice. Although from my reading of that means that things like that Superfish and Relay Day, where you're doing the certificate splicing, in that case, you're going to get this certificate from a website, and then you're going to create a certificate request for the same subject name and create a new certificate for it, then to give to the user to do the interception thing. So I don't think it's actually that rare in practice. So that means that if you visit the website that's got this malicious certificate via a corporate proxy that does this interception thing, it could exploit the corporate proxy and allow them to intercept all traffic. If you could exploit that appliance, that would give you basically a perfect man-in-the-middle position for the entire business that's having all of its traffic routed through this intercept appliance, right? So that's a specific one where, if you have a Cisco appliance that does that, you're going to want that patch from Cisco. 0289, an attacker may be able to crash applications that verify PKCS number 7 certificates, decrypt PKCS number 7 data, or otherwise parse PKCS number 7 structures that are specifically crafted in the certificate. 0293, a malicious client can trigger an OpenSSL_assert in servers that both support SSL v2 and enable the export cipher suites by sending a specially crafted SSL v2 client master key message, resulting in a denial of service. Although hopefully everybody has disabled support for SSL v2 and the export cipher suites, and that one won't apply. But we know lots of people haven't, so disable SSL v2 and maybe even v3, and definitely disable the export cipher suites.
Yeah.
And they also mentioned that the two of the issues, 0204 and 0292, were already addressed in previous security updates, but were just upgraded in this advisory.
It's just almost like we almost need like an we need like a SSL segment bump, just like a bum SSL update. What do you think? Yeah.
Yeah. The other interesting thing is now that the CVE numbers are given out in batches like they are.
Mm-hmm.
You notice that all the SSL ones were kind of in a row, and we noticed that with the Adobe ones.
Yeah.
And it seems like they've kind of like allocated a chunk for Adobe and a chunk for SSL, and then they'll get another chunk later or something.
Yeah.
Well, there's been a couple of gaps in those chunks.
Yes.
Meaning that there's some exploit they know about and are working on a fix for, but haven't released yet.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Or maybe is one that turned out not to be, so they never issued it. But some of these numbers seem to be reserved for things that we haven't heard about yet.
Also known as future stories on TechSNAP.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the next SSL update points to a CVE number that's lower than the highest number we've seen so far. And, that kind of suggests that there was stuff running around.
From the Department of Water is Wet, UK spies claim to have broad powers to hack the world. Of course, this is the GCHQ, and they have a statement where they've said a few things that they've essentially acknowledged. Now, they can't affirm or deny specific policies, they say, and for what areas, but they say operations vary in complexity, and there's different scales. More complex operations involve exploiting vulnerabilities in software in order to gain control of devices or networks to remotely extract information, monitor the user or the device, or take control of a device network. They say these types of operations can be carried out illegally by hackers or criminals in limited or carefully controlled circumstances, and for legitimate purposes, these types of operations may also be carried out lawfully by certain public authorities like the GCHQ.
So yeah, the GCHQ is saying we're legally allowed to hack whoever we want. This is related to the GCHQ is being sued by I think 5 ISPs from like England, Germany, and a couple other places.
Good.
And so their defense is that we're legally allowed to hack whoever we want. It's like, well, you're in England, and maybe the English government legally allows you to hack whoever you want, but in Germany, that's not allowed. Or only the German security service is allowed to hack whoever they want in Germany, right? And it comes down to all the craziness.
Now, this next story, it sounds like one of these headlines that makes the audience lose sleep at night. Persistent BIOS rootkit implant is to debut at CanSec West, which I assume is like a conference.
Yes, it's a conference on the West Coast of Canada.
That sounds like a neat one.
It's a security conference.
Huh. And they say it's a persistent BIOS. What do you think, Alan? What do you think?
So they say an attacker with existing remote access to a compromised computer. So I don't have to actually physically be at the computer, but if I've somehow compromised your computer so I can log into it, can use the implant to turn down existing protections in place to prevent us from reflashing the firmware. So especially newer stuff has some protections in place so that you can't just reflash the firmware with a virus. But this exploit has found a way around most of those. And this allows them to then implant and execute their malware in the firmware. So even if you reformat the server, the malware is still there. They say the devious part of the exploit is that researchers have found a way to insert their agent into the system management mode, which is used by firmware and runs separately from the operating system, but is actually running while your system is running, right? It's not just, is compared to the old way we had computers with the BIOS that only ran until the OS started. With system management mode in like the UEFI type BIOSes, there's a system management mode that's running all the time, and it has access to memory. So this puts supposedly secure and privacy-focused operating systems like Tails in the line of fire from this thing.
Because the live city is not going to be any good if it's in the BIOS.
Well, yeah. So the malware is running in system management mode, so it's running beside the operating system and has access to all the RAM. They say the researchers say their implant is able to scrape the secret PGP key used by Tails for encrypted communications. It can also steal passwords and encrypted communications. They say the implant survives OS reinstallation and even survives Tails' built-in protection, including the ability of wiping RAM.
Wow.
So like when you shut down your Tails, it can overwrite all the RAM or whatever. But if you read it before it overwrote it, then it's fine.
Or if you're reading it as it's being used by the OS,
so this would allow the malware to basically steal stuff out of memory all the time. It kind of reminds me of the one they had, the idea of running the keylogger on your video card and using like the 4 gigs of RAM on your video card as storage for the keylogger. And there was another one with the network card, where because the video card and network card both have access to DMA or direct memory access, they could be reading your keyboard input as you're typing it, and then the network card could obviously just fire it off over the network.
Yep.
To somebody.
Yep. Or just log it.
Yep.
That's crazy. That's not the kind of vulnerability. That's like bad USB. I don't like those ones. I don't like those ones. So just as a follow-up to the Target story that we followed since, the week it broke, Target agrees to pay $10 million to data breach victims. This is sort of their settlement they're coming to. Investigators believe the thieves captured, remember, all that information from 1,700 Target stores. Well, also Target's laying off 13% of their workforce, which is a little unfortunate. But 15 lawsuits...
All Targets in Canada have closed.
15 lawsuits were filed by the end of 2013, seeking millions of dollars in damages. So the proposed settlement, which has to be approved by the federal district court judge, creates a settlement account that could pay individual victims up to $10,000 in damages, according to court docs. What do you think, Alan?
So I guess I was going to say, well, $10 million divided by all the people who had their credit card have to be replaced because of it would probably work out to less than $1 a person. But if they're only getting the people who actually got owned, I guess. The bigger question is, how do you prove that it was Target that was the source, especially with so many other leaks happening around the same time?
Yeah.
But
you know what? I bet everybody gets free experience, so that's a win.
Yeah, but I think in the end, $10 million doesn't seem like very much.
And rounding us out is one more from Mr. Krebs about a convicted tax fraudster.
Yes. So, we talked about the QuickBooks and the tax fraud stuff. So there was this bad guy named Lance Ely, who's a Ohio man who was found guilty of filing phony tax refund requests for more than 150 people. He stole he got their identities from, if you remember, superget.info.
Yeah.
That service ran by a Vietnamese guy who was buying the data from Experian.
Yeah. Yes.
Selling it?
Yes.
Well, when so the Secret Service managed to convince him to come to Guam for something, for some big deal or something, and then arrested him and brought him back to the States. And using that and the information they got from him, they managed to arrest a bunch of the people who had bought the stolen IDs. One of them was this guy. So they arrested this guy and charged him. And he was under house arrest, and he managed to, break his tracking bracelet and get away. And even you can see the Twitter picture he posted while on the run with the Roadrunner thing and be like, you can't touch me.
Classy.
He had fired his attorney and was randomly filing pro se legal arguments and responses to the prosecutors while on the run. So it's interesting to read. He was saying that the judge was unfair and he should get a retrial and stuff while he's on the run.
Well, somebody's got to be an advocate for the man.
And then investigators close to the case say Ely continued filing false tax return requests while on the run from the law. But instead of turning to an underground identity theft service as he did previously, investigators say Ely appeared to have paid numerous inmates serving time in Ohio prisons for permission to file tax refund requests on their behalf with the IRS, topping up the inmates' commissary funds to the tune of $100 per filing while pocketing the rest of the fraudulent refunds. So he's like, I know how to do this tax fraud thing, so I'll give you $100 if I can use your identity. So give me all the, the information I need to file.
They're like, well, I'm sitting here in prison. What do I care? I'll just claim I was a victim. I'll just claim I was a victim. Yeah. Meanwhile, I can. Exactly. Yeah. Interesting. Dirty, dirty world. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, I just thought it was. The important thing is that the Secret Service did a raid and caught him, so he's back in prison.
And that brings us triumphantly to the end of episode 206 of the TechSNAP program. Now, TechSNAP's live on Thursdays. Just go to jblive.tv. We start at 1 p.m. Pacific, which is
3, 4? What time do we start? 4 p.m. Eastern, which is 2000 UTC.
Yes. And now, starting next week, all the daylight savings shenanigans is all done. Right, we're all out of that.
So next week, the rest of Europe will switch.
Yeah, which would be nice because
the show will stay at 2000 UTC because we changed before.
Yep.
So European people have to remember that your time's going to change, but the UTC sign will stay the same. It's 2000 UTC.
And you know what?
You just need to convert that to your local time zone.
I've noticed their absence. It's been noticeable. I've missed them.
Yes.
So it'll be nice to have them back. And it should be a great live show next week, and you can join us too over at jblive.tv. We also have jblive.info, which is the audio-only stream, if you want to grab that. And also, don't forget, we want your feedback. Go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click that contact link, and send us in some feedback, or make the show even better and supply some content, or engage with the community over at techsnap.reddit.com. All right, Alan, well, I hope you get some rest, and it's good to have you back. And, of course, I'll see you right back here next week. And I would also encourage all of you, if you want to catch the show every single week, grab one of our RSS feeds. You just then get the show automatically after we put it out Thursday evenings on the West Coast. All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of TechSNAP. We'll see you right back here next week.